UFC Fight Night Atlanta, Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley was this past weekend. I'm going to be giving my entire recap and breakdown of the card. Now, this card was pretty bad, to be brutally honest. It ended up pretty poorly. The prelims were pretty good. There just wasn't a lot to get excited about on this card, to be brutally honest. And, it just didn't end up being the best card. There were good moments. There's still the great moments between different fights, but most of the card was pretty bad. So we're going to go through that today, and we have a lot of other videos we're going to be recording today that you'll be seeing soon. So let's go ahead. Let's start with the first fight of the night, Jamie Lynn Horth versus Vanessa Demopoulos. So, of course, Vanessa Demopoulos had to, show off her ass or whatever at the weigh-in, because women's MMA fighters who aren't good at fighting, that's what they have to do. So that you either have to be, try to expose yourself and, try and be attractive and make simp MMA fans like gooners, like the degenerates, make them like you. And then, if you can make them like you, you don't have to be good at fighting, because then they'll know you at least, and you'll have fans and people who will give you money. But she's bad at fighting, while Jamie Lynn Horth is, average, so she was able to get the win in this one. Just outworked her, did work against the cage in the clinch, outstruck her easily, was better on the feet, better on the ground, just better at everything. Not surprising. Vanessa Demopoulos should not be in the UFC. She is a shocking 11-8 now. Please cut her. She's terrible, and she's way too small for the weight class. Nothing really interesting in this fight to talk about, so let's just move on. Phil Rowe versus Ange Lusa. By the way, guys, I don't know what got into me on my predictions video. I don't know why I was so confident, because it was really bad. My predictions were terrible. So we're not going to talk about that. My predictions for this upcoming card will be better. I will lock in more, okay? But anyway, I want to talk about this fight. This was actually a really, really good fight. Scrap, fun. It was a war back and forth, especially once we got into the second round. Ange Lusa, knocked him down, was taking him down, getting control. He had a lot of good moments in the earlier rounds, but Phil Rowe, man, at the end of the fight, he was winning the close exchange, the close boxing exchanges, which I should have known he was going to do. That's Phil Rowe's game, is he's a tight boxer who's he's a scrappy guy, tight boxer, keeps it close, likes the close range for a taller guy, not very common, and then he works on you in the clinch. That's what he does. I should have known that he was going to do that. But, Ange Lusa nearly won the fight. I just think that Ange Lusa doesn't quite have the warrior mentality. I mean, he was getting battered in that third round by Phil Rowe, and he was out on his feet forever. And the ref stopped it, and he was done. And it was just Phil Rowe finishing him off before the end of the fight. And Ange Lusa, there's moments now where we have seen him, the third round, he gassed out against Phil Rowe and got finished after winning the rest of the fight. And then the Brian Battle fight, he quits after the first round because of an eye poke. It's bullshit. So we're seeing some quitting consistently now from Ange Lusa that can be a little bit concerning for his career. So let's hope that that's not, a precedent for him, but it very well could be. We have a lot of different things. He has a lot of different examples of it now, so we'll see. But Phil Rowe is very good. No shame in losing to Phil Rowe or Brian Battle. Both those guys are very good. So, he put on a decent performance, but he gassed out and got finished late in a good fight. So, Ange Lusa, nothing against him. I think he'll bounce back, but he's just gotta work on his cardio a little bit, and he's fighting at 170 right now. I don't know. I feel like he should be succeeding, because he can't really drop much more in weight. Maybe he doesn't do a weight cut. I'm not sure. Work on his cardio a little bit more, and I think he'll be a little bit better. But great fight, and great KO by Phil Rowe. Moving on. Ricky Simone versus Cameron Smotherman. This fight wasn't great. Ricky Simone just did a lot of groundwork. A lot of clinch work, a lot of cage work, of course. And he's just higher level than Cameron Smotherman. I don't recall, actually, if I picked Smotherman or Simone in this fight. I should have picked Simone if I didn't, because he is just absolutely much higher level than Cameron Smotherman. Smotherman just lost to Sergey City, who's a decent fighter, but he's not Ricky Simone's level. Ricky Simone's only lost to, like, Vinicius Oliveira and Song Yudong, and, these aren't bad fighters. And Ricky Simone, he needed some of this confidence back because people were worried about his durability, but he just beat Basharat by KO. By big KO. So, this was a step down in opponent for him, and Cameron Smotherman took a step up after a loss. So, obviously, Smotherman stepped in on short notice for Charles Jourdain. I just say you rebook that fight. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. Ricky Simone, he got a win. He got what he needed to do. Cameron Smotherman lost. He needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs a full training camp. I understand that he likes to do these short notice fights, but he took some damage in that Sergey City fight, and that was 3 weeks before this. So, I think that Cameron Smotherman needs to be a little bit more smart about how he's approaching his career, and I think that he should find the easy fights. Because, you can take all the hard fights, and yeah, the UFC might like you. They'll like you until they don't. Because you can take all the hard fights, but if you lose all the hard fights, they're not going to care about you. So you need to, I think Smotherman needs to win an easy fight or two, and then start getting back into the spot where we can be like, oh, Cameron Smotherman, that's an interesting win, Yep, all right, that's all I've got for that one. Let's move on. Cody Durden versus Jose Ochoa. Now, I picked Ochoa earlier in the day, and I switched my pick to Cody Durden. And I knew that I shouldn't have, because Jose Ochoa had a fantastic performance against Lonnie Kavanaugh, and I should have known that was going to be important going into this fight. And Jose Ochoa showed he's amazing on the feet. He's got great skill. He's dynamic. He's powerful. He's really fast. And I think that, we're going to see him and Kavanaugh towards the top of the division one day. And they're both so young. And we might see them rematch, for a top contendership spot or a championship later on in the future. I really could see it because I think both these guys are unbelievable talents. And beating Cody Durden in your second UFC fight after losing to a prospect who also hadn't fought in the UFC at the time, then going on and beating Cody Durden is actually a really good win. So I'm really confident in Jose Ochoa's chances. If you can beat Cody Durden, you can deal with the grit and the wrestling, the chain wrestling. You can deal with all these things that Cody Durden does, and he's a crafty vet, These things are problems for a lot of guys, and I think Jose Ochoa really did a great job of showing that isn't a problem for him, and he showed his amazing striking. I mean, he won the first round, then you get into the second round, and Ochoa immediately finished him in 11 seconds. So, great finish from Jose Ochoa, clean work, and great win. I'd love to see him on the Mexico card maybe. The Noche card, not Mexico, San Antonio, but the Noche card. That'd be great. Get him back in there quick and get him against another decent flyweight, and let's see this guy more. He's really good. Moving on. Malcolm Wallmaker versus Chris Matinho. Now, of course, a lot of people are watching this video for this fight. There are other ones, but this is a big one. I picked Wallmaker, obviously. I'm sure everyone did, but some people picked Matinho. And Matinho, the thing is, he got put into a terrible fight after, he gets back into the UFC on a 5-fight win streak. And he gets absolutely smoked because they give him a legitimate prospect. And I think that we can feel more confident in Wallmaker being a real prospect. And the reason I say that isn't just because he's won by two knockouts and recency bias, whatever. He beat Cameron Simon. And in my opinion, that's a really underrated win because Cameron Simon was doing really well in the bantamweight division until he matched up with Peyton Tabit. And I still think Peyton Tabit's really good, especially as a striker. Him versus Felipe Lima is going to be an unbelievable fight. Kind of sad that it's happening because I really like both prospects and I really don't want to kill off either prospect. And I feel like Lima's going to win because Lima is going to take him down and work on him. But we'll see. Maybe Peyton Tabit gets it done. I hope he does. But I'm also a Felipe Lima fan, so I really don't care who wins that fight, to be brutally honest. But anyway, Wallmaker beat Cameron Simon, and Cameron Simon I think is very good. I think Cameron Simon's underrated, and I think he is a good bantamweight, especially in your first fight, to beat the way he did. It wasn't like he just KO'd him. He was winning the fight. And then he goes out there and dominates Chris Moutinho the way he should have. To me, that shows that he is a real, true prospect. And he's going to be a contender. And he's 31. He's in his prime. This is the now. Like, he needs to be on the track now. I think he's got the talent. I think he has the skill to be ranked. Like, it's pretty evident. His power is unbelievable. He sets it up. There's a clip of him practicing the exact, feint the low kick and then right hook. His hook, when he's switching his stance, because that's essentially what he's doing. He's feinting the low kick and he's moving his leg inside, moving his hip, but he's essentially just switching to southpaw, so then that right hook becomes a check hook, and his check hooks are just unbelievable. We saw it against Simon, the counter check hook. It was a left hook, finished him. Then he switched his stance on the feint kick, boom, right hook, right over the top. I mean, it was like a fucking whip, and he finished him. I mean, face plant KO. Maybe will be KO of the year. Probably will be in contention or at least in conversations. But yeah, fantastic finish for Malcolm Wallmaker. And we need to see him back in there. New Orleans. Get him on. The New Orleans card's terrible. Get him on the New Orleans card. And get him against it's no longer safe to put this guy against anyone who's not good. So let's put him against somebody who's good. Maybe Cody Garbrandt. Honestly, hey, Cody's washed, and we'll get to that. But I've seen people matching up that fight. I wouldn't mind it, but we'll see. I think Wallmaker gets somebody else. But I think you throw him on the New Orleans card. Get him in there as fast as possible. I've got to move on. I'm taking too long. Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. Well, this will be fast. This fight was terrible, boring as shit. Michael Chiesa is on a 3-fight win streak of Max Griffin, Tony Ferguson, and Court McGee now. He needs to actually fight a real welterweight fighter, and I've seen the matchup of Nicholas Dalby, and I guess it makes sense because they're both old, and Dalby is very good. But Dalby just got slept in his last fight. And to be honest, that's not like a super convincing win for Michael Chiesa, especially now that Dalby got slept, and this dude has never been slept. So, in my opinion, Michael Chiesa hopefully will get killed soon. He basically just won this fight, which means that he maintained his desk analyst job, and he will continue being that for the UFC. And now they're giving him these ridiculous matchups because he didn't end up suing the UFC because he didn't get a title shot over Ally and Quinta. Whatever. I just think that Michael Chiesa better get an actual fight in his next fight and not just some bullshit 40-year-old Court McGee or Tim Means or any of this. So, yeah, terrible fight, not fun to watch, and yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Moving on. All right. Was he faking it? Paul Craig Rodolfo Bellato. Was he faking it? I've been thinking about this all week. That's why I'm so late to record the video, guys. That's totally it. I've been thinking about this all week. I have no idea. Watching it live, I thought it was real. To be brutally honest, I did. Because it's hard to believe that somebody would do that in an octagon. Now, I know people have done it before. And in my personal opinion, watching it back, it does look fake, guys. I'm going to be real. It does. People are calling it fake online, and I was originally a defender. And I'm not trying to just, continue the narrative, whatever, and just shit on Rodolfo Bellato. But, guys, it looks fake. It really does. It looks fake. Because he looks at the ref. The fact that he looks at the ref and then he closes his eyes as he's falling backwards. We've seen delayed knockouts. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, and I do feel bad if it is real. but man, it looked fake. It looked really fake, and you know, I just want to see it booked, man. I just want to see this fight get rebooked. It's a cursed fight, man. It gets booked. You book it again, and then this shit happens after a herpes virus, bro. This fight needs to get rebooked. We need to see it a third time. Neither of these guys have anything better to do. I thought if Paul Craig lost, he would have retired. He was actually winning this fight. So that's what's even crazier is that Rodolfo Bellato was losing to Paul Craig at light heavy. Like, he should not have been losing that fight. And I really hope they rebook it. I just want to see it a third time, guys. It'll be fucking cinema if they do it a third time. I don't know. Maybe Paul Craig will, like, knock him out. Like, Paul Craig will, like, land a head kick or some shit on him. Like, that's what we're going to see if this fight gets booked again. So I want to see it again. I think he was probably faking it, you know. And whatever, this fight didn't really mean shit. It was just fun to watch in terms of that. That was literally the second most exciting point on the card besides the Wallmaker KO. But yeah. All right, now let's go on to the arguably the worst crowded fight night main card of the year, to be brutally honest. This main card was fucking pathetic, so I'm not going to take long breaking this down. Alonzo Menifield versus Umar Sy. So Umar Sy just essentially gave Alonzo Menifield a win. Alonzo Menifield is not good. He really isn't. He's stupid. He's just athletic. And he's got some decent bits of boxing here and there. Some of that boxing you've been doing. But Umar Sy was like content with Alonzo Menifield pulling away with the fight. It made no sense. It was a close decision, and you could have given it to Umar Sy, but to be honest, I'm not blaming them for giving it to Menifield too. Umar Sy just did not look good enough, and I don't understand why so many prospects come into the sport and they are just willing to just stand there and not throw anything. We'll get to you, Mansur Abdul-Malik. And they're just gonna stand they're like, they're looking at reach, guiding their reach, guiding feint, they're just not, like, actually engaging. They're just feinting everything and just acting like they're going to throw, and then they don't throw. So I really don't understand why prospects do that, and this fight was boring because of it, and Alonzo Menifield won, so it doesn't even mean anything because Menifield's going to get brutally knocked out in his next fight, and Umar Sy has no hype anymore. So, awesome. Moving on, Mansur Abdul-Malik versus Cody Brundage. Another god-awful fight with the dumbest... Now... Listen, I like Mansur Abdul-Malik. I think he's a cool dude. From what I've interviews, nothing against him. And I think he was an entertaining fighter before he got to the UFC. And he's put on decent performances here and there. His performances haven't been showing out, great, but his fights haven't been really boring. This fight was boring. And he was losing. The fact that he won really kind of surprised me watching back the fight. And Cody Brundage was kind of winning. It was an ugly fight. And both of them didn't look good. But Cody Brundage looked better than he normally does. He didn't look like a quitter. And he was doing more. But because Mansur, was a little bit more doing the Umar Sy stuff where he's, pointing, feint, not actually throwing. Just because he does that more, he's actually throwing while Brundage is just, kind of hobbing in. And then they go out at the beginning of the third round, and then Mansur headbutts him. And then they score the third round 36 seconds in. So it goes to a partial decision. And didn't they do this with Song Yadong versus Cejudo? But they only scored the first 3 rounds? Or whatever round it was when he got eye poked. It was the rounds before that they scored. And it has to go at least 2 rounds or something for a fight to go to a partial decision. This shit makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Take control of your sport. Understand how your sport works. This makes 0 sense. How the fuck can you judge a round off of 36 seconds? And of course, it was the only exciting bit, and then it got stopped short by a headbutt, and then we got some weird-ass decision to a guy who arguably didn't even win it. Mansur Abdul-Malik is now 3-0 in the UFC with no impressive names on his resume. And, Yeah, I mean, Cody Brown, he's the guy who quits and lost to Bo Nickel, which is not a good look at all. So, yeah. Moving on. Cody Garbrandt versus Raoni Barcelos. I'm going to get super angry talking about this fight. Cody just doesn't want to pull the trigger. He does in the first round, and then he's not anything anymore. He's a first-round fighter, and then after, like, in the first round, he can do things. In the second and third round, he's a one-punch fighter. And he's still kind of a one-punch fighter in the first rounds, but he's willing to do more things. While in the second and third, he becomes a full-time one-punch fighter. And then apparently, I don't know if this is real or not, but I saw something that apparently Cody said that the weight of his hair was making him flat-footed and he felt slow. Dude, you need to fucking retire, man. If you're losing to Raoni Barcelos like that, where it's like you just don't look good at all, and he doesn't even really implement the grappling, he just beats you on the feet, your feet is the only chance. How are you losing to Raoni Barcelos on the feet in a decision? How? You need to retire. You need to retire. I mean, it's over. His career's over. He's not good anymore. I've seen people saying Chris Matinho. I would fucking, you know what, do it. One of them get a win, you know. It would make sense and it'd be an easier matchup for both guys. And it's a big name for Chris Matinho. I don't know. Chris Matinho, I feel like could deserve something, man. He did the O'Malley thing. You know, he came back, got KO'd, whatever. Wins at 5 fights, comes back, and then you give him to a fucking, you know, prospect. Like, give him a decent fight, all right? Give him a fight with a name. And a guy who he honestly could beat, because Cody Garbrandt's ass. He's hot ass. And Cody Garbrandt in Big 2025, we've seen all these vets win. Volk, now Usman. And Cody Garbrandt is fucking hot ass, bro. So, yeah, I think he's done, and I think he should retire. Moving on. Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Petroski. Oh, another terrible fight. Andre Petroski, for some reason, just didn't wrestle in this fight. And so, like, you know, it was a good job by Edmund. He used to be a first-round fighter, and that's why he got exposed. And he's starting to, like, I think, commit to his cardio a little more, and he's trying to become more of a complete fighter. And you can see it in the way he fights, his discipline. He's training at, I believe, Extreme Couture now, so he's at a better gym. You know, there's a lot of things going on for Edmund Shabazian. I think he will develop into a better guy now than he used to be in terms of just, like, full-on potential. I could see him getting to the rankings at some point. Nothing really beyond that. And it's a good win to beat Andre Petroski, but I don't understand why Andre Petroski just decided to not wrestle him, and that's the one thing that got him here was his chain wrestling. So, honestly, we might need to see Edmund against another one because that's his big weakness, but we'll see. You know, it's a decent win. He knocked down Andre Petroski in a moment. You know, it's a decent win, but still fucking boring and just another bad piece of this bad card. Moving on to the co-main event. Wow, Rose Namajunas versus Miranda Maverick. I thought it was close. To be brutally honest, guys, I thought Miranda had a chance. And Rose didn't look that good. I mean, I think ultimately she did win. It was a fight that I watched. You know, Rose was implementing takedowns, trying to get her down, and she had her moments on the feet, but she, you know, got beaten total strikes by Miranda Maverick. And she got paid $500K. If those are real numbers, where Usman got paid $300K and you gave Rose $500,000, if this is where your fucking money is going, we need someone else doing the pay. Whoever is doing the pay in the UFC needs to be fired and put in fucking jail, man. It needs to be based off excitement. Rose Namajunas is nothing anymore. And you're sticking her in these co-main events and main events because you have nothing else better to do because you're paying her $250 for a win in a fight. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. I don't even want to talk about this shit anymore because that is dumb. How are you paying $500K to Rose Namajunas? Moving on to the main event. And this also made me mad, but it didn't make me as mad. Usman showed really good wrestling. He had a really good performance. At the age he had, he proved me wrong. His striking was slow. Being brutally honest, he did not look good on the feet. Him and Bilal is the fight I want to see, man. It just makes perfect sense. It has hype behind it. It has beef behind it. And it has, we can use that clip from the podcast as promotional, as a promotional tool. Release the footage, for a build-up of a fight, and then we see them, tussle it out on the podcast, and then we get this, and we get a press conference, co-main event of a pay-per-view, 5 rounds. Or maybe, we book it later next, we need, maybe book it for a Saudi Arabia card in February, or, whatever, or March, or January, we need to see them early next year, late this year, man. Usman, I'm not waiting until the middle of next year for your title shot off of one win. Makes 0 sense. Not happening. Sean Brady deserves it over you. At least right now. I think they should do, honestly, I think you have to hold a contender in the welterweight division and save them for the next title shot. Or you need to book Sean Brady and Ian Gary. You need to have that booked by August or September. You need to have it booked before Islam versus Jack. You need to have it booked before that. Because I don't think you're going to get Usman and Bilal booked before that. What your hope is, if you're the UFC, because Usman and Bilal are not going to fight. Because Usman's not going to fight until late this year at the earliest. So what needs to happen? Get Sean Brady and Ian Gary booked. Co-main event of 316, or you do it as main event of a fight night in September, or put it on the Vegas card in October. That is when you need that fight booked. Get JDM and Islam done late October, November. I think you do it either Abu Dhabi in October or you do it at MSG in November. Depending if you get the John Jones fight done. I think it'd be good to do it in MSG. Get it in America, the double champ fight. And then you get if Sean Brady beats Gary, Sean Brady into a title fight. If Ian Gary wins, maybe Ian Gary gets a title fight. And then you do Bilal versus Usman. But then Shavkat fight. There's a lot of different things that you have to think about with this welterweight division. There's really, you might have to book Shavkat doesn't deserve a title shot, but he might get lucky. He might get lucky with one. I could see it, but we'll see. There's a lot of things happening in the welterweight division. We have a log jam right now, and we really need to figure it out. What needs to happen? They need to fight it out. Bilal and Usman need to fight. If Bilal wins that fight, he doesn't get the title shot. If Usman wins, he gets the title shot. Brady versus Shavkat, maybe, if you can get that booked by Abu Dhabi, a true title eliminator for the winner of Islam versus JDM. And then you do, say, Bilal and Usman January or February of next year. Then you get JDM or Islam back in, if it's JDM, hopefully. Then you can do it in April instead of having to wait in between Ramadan. Because then if Islam wins the belt late this year, he'll fucking fight in June next year. And then we're just fucked at that point. Because if Islam becomes champ, guys, it'll actually be so bad for the division. It'll be so bad for the division. Because Islam fights twice a year if we're lucky. Like, the only reason he's going to fight twice a year this year is because he only fought once last year because his fight kept getting delayed because of a hand injury. He fights in January, and now he's supposed to fight at International Fight Week, but because Bilal lost, we didn't get Islam Ilya in June. So now we're going to get Islam at the end of the year, which means we're lucky if he fights twice next year. And we just can't have that in the welterweight division right now. If JDM fights Islam, JDM could be back by April. Islam will be back in June. And then if you can get Usman Bilal booked in February, you get Brady and Shavkat booked by Abu Dhabi maybe. Shavkat, I think, can fight this year. I've heard that he can fight this year. You get them booked for Abu Dhabi. The winner of that comes out and fights the winner of JDM and Islam, hopefully JDM. Middle of next year, then the winner, if Usman beats Bilal, he gets the title shot. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this welterweight division. They're going to figure it out, and it's probably going to be really shitty, and we're going to get really mad about it. But that's kind of what I think could happen and what I think would be one of the better scenarios. If you guys want me to do a whole video on that, let me know. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the fight, Usman just did a really good job showing off his grappling. Buckley looked content in these bottom positions, which is really frustrating to watch. And he just didn't really look like he had any sense of urgency to get up. And, like he occasionally did. But Usman was also just doing a really good job of positioning himself in the right places. And when you're a vet and you've been on a slide and you can't, the thing is, Usman lost that fight to Hamzat because he couldn't implement his wrestling on Hamzat. And, he got beat out in the wrestling by Hamzat. And with Usman against Buckley, he was able to implement his wrestling. And again, when you're a vet on a slide, you're not going to, and you've been out for a year and a half. The thing you're going to feel more rusty on is striking because you have to mentally prepare yourself to strike and then hit the guy in the face. And you have to be prepared to get hit in the face, which that's not what happens in camp. There's no way Usman gets hit in the face in camp, not at this point in his career. So that's what you have to get used to. So it was a great decision by Usman to implement his grappling early so that he can settle into the fight and feel confident. And that's what he did, and he got the win, man. And it was an impressive performance for his age, and I'm really happy for him. One more win, and he deserves a title shot. Not yet. Not in the welterweight division that we currently exist in. If the timing worked out for him, then absolutely. But it didn't work out for him. It just didn't. So, my guess is if JDM beat Bilal or if Bilal beat JDM, then we probably would have gotten Bilal versus Usman. Or we would have gotten Bilal versus Sean Brady too, or Bilal versus Shavkat rebooked. Or we would get, Bilal Usman, and then they booked Brady and, Shavkat. We would have different things. But because JDM is champ and now Islam's moving up, the welterweight division is a log jam. It was already a log jam, but now it's even more of a log jam because Islam's moving up. So, yeah, a lot of stuff to figure out at welterweight. Great performance from Usman. That's all I've got. Buckley will be back. I'd like to see Buckley back against a Kevin Holland rematch would be good. I think that would be a great fight, and I think that'd be interesting, and I think it'd be a good fight for Buckley. Both guys, to be honest, but I think they're going to do Holland versus Colby. So Buckley, give him some time off. Get back in there. If you maybe do Pradas versus Jeff Neal here soon, and you get that booked by August, maybe the winner of that fights a Joaquin Buckley. Maybe you do Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley. I definitely think that could be on the table. We'll see, depending on how they match up this welterweight division. But yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I've got other stuff to record. It took too long on this, but whatever. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.